Hello everyone. This week we're going to be thinking about the sign of Jonah. Signs can be very useful. Sometimes they warn us of danger. Sometimes they give us information. And sometimes they can even make us laugh. But what is this sign of Jonah? Well, firstly, we're going to listen to a song and we're going to see some children's drawings that will remind us of what we know about Jonah.
Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? You ought to be in Nineveh. But you said, Lord, I am not going to those wicked people there. I don't think you should forgive those wicked people who'll be spared. And so I'll catch a ship for Tarshish just as quickly as I can. I'm not going to Nineveh, Lord. Well, then the Lord sent such a great wind on the sea, what a storm! And the sailors cried, we're doomed, for soon this ship will be no more. Who has brought this trouble on us? Jonah, Jonah, is it you? For you are running away from the Lord. Throw me overboard, said Jonah. Down and down and down he went, until a large fish swallowed Jonah, and for a big trip then he went. But deep inside the fish was Jonah, praying to the Lord his God. I disobeyed you, but your mercy is so strong. Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? You ought to be in Nineveh. Now those who cling to worthless idols forfeit grace that could be theirs. But with a song of thanks and sacrifice, I'll do as you have said. So on and on went Jonah's fishy trip, till the dry land he did reach. And there that fish spat Jonah on the beach. Now this time when the Lord said, Jonah, off to Nineveh you go, he didn't hesitate at God's command, and to Nineveh did go. Well, all those Ninevites were listening, and declared they'd change their ways, and God forgave them and spared them that day. Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? Jonah, 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 what you doing in that fish? You ought to be in Nineveh. Yes, you ought to be in Nineveh.
It's amazing that God sent Jonah again to Nineveh. The people there listened to Jonah. They believed God. They showed God that they wanted to be forgiven, and they stopped doing the things that they were doing. Now, about 800 years later, Jesus was talking to some very proud and bossy leaders of the Jewish faith. They thought that they were pleasing God. They were obeying lots of rules, but they weren't really showing God's love to anyone. In their hearts, they didn't really love God. They said to Jesus, in a very proud way, show us an amazing miracle, and then we might believe in you. They were asking Jesus to prove who he was, even though he'd been spending lots of time healing people who couldn't see or hear or walk or talk. Some people were really sick. One little girl had died, and Jesus brought her back to life as well. These things that Jesus were doing really proved he was God. They were things of God, and yet the people didn't believe him. So Jesus said very firmly to them, "You know about the prophet Jonah. You know he was in that fish for 3 days. And very soon the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth for 3 days. This is the only sign that I'm going to show you. This is the sign of Jonah." So what's Jesus talking about? Jonah was thrown into the water. He went down into the deep ocean. He was gone. Nobody saw him. In that darkness, God was working powerfully. Jonah was saved, and he went and he spoke to the Ninevite people. He told them God wanted them to stop doing their evil things and ask for forgiveness. And they did, and he saved them. Jesus was killed on a cross and put in a tomb. He was there for 3 days. But in the darkness, again, God was working powerfully. Jesus rose to life again, and he went to tell people that God had brought him to life, that they needed to ask for forgiveness, and that he would give them the gift of eternal life. That's an amazing sign. It's an amazing sign for us as well. We can ask God for forgiveness. We can receive that forgiveness. We shouldn't ignore this sign that he's given us. I hope you enjoy putting together your little book. And then there's a split pin to put through and to open to keep it together. I'm hoping too that you might have time to talk with your family, either at church or perhaps when you get home, about the sign of Jonah.